Good evening. Police tonight are looking for the arsonist who set a fire that killed 7 people this morning. The blaze broke out in an apartment at 2313 West Thomas Street. Within minutes, flames engulfed the entire building. The fire burned out several stairways inside, trapping the residents on upper floors. Firefighters were able to rescue most of them, but 5 children and 2 adults weren't able to get out. 4 people were treated for burns and smoke inhalation today. Some of the building's residents were able to jump from upper floors.
And I heard an explosion, and when my mother went to open the front door, she seen all those flames.
And what happened after that?
I called my mother and my father to throw themselves out the window, and I threw myself, then she threw my little brother. I caught him, and then my father threw himself, then he called my mother.
For those who survived the early morning disaster, there is much work still to be done. Residents spent the day clearing out what is left of their possessions, carrying furniture and refrigerators into the street. Officials now say it appears there were 2 or more separate fires going on at the same time. They admit that the fire was so destructive, it's hard to tell exactly what happened. Samples of debris from the scene are being analyzed, and the investigation is continuing at this hour.
The sit-in at the mayor's office is just the latest in a long series of pleas for help to solve a problem that has festered within several neighborhoods on the near northwest side for 2 years. The problem of fires, deliberately set. They have created a fear in the residents when they go to sleep at night. Whose house will be next? Will there be children inside? The latest realization of those fears came over the weekend when an arsonist set fire to a 4-story apartment building. 7 people died, including 5 children trapped inside. That was on Thomas Street, within a section of the city that the Northwest Community Organization claims has been hit by 600 fires in the last year. It's hard to find a street that isn't pockmarked by the problem. They are older homes, some dating back to the Chicago fire. It has become a changing community with Spanish-speaking people and blacks now mixed in with long-time Polish residents. But I find a spirit among these residents along Cortez Street to fix up their homes, even some damaged by the arson fires. This group of young men has been cleaning up vacant lots all summer, up and down the streets of this community. And while the homes are old, it is not a neighborhood that has collapsed. And yet, someone is burning it down. The people bring up 3 reasons for the fires. One is gangs, who burn for kicks, maybe money in some cases. But their threats against people who testify make investigations difficult. The second reason concerns insurance, a pattern similar to other parts found in the city. Landlords who burn the buildings, saving themselves the cost of having them torn down, collecting insurance, too. And some believe there is a bigger fight against forces conspiring to drive out the poor and replace their homes with more profitable income-producing buildings in this prime real estate location that is within easy access to the Loop. Part of the arson area just happens to fall within the Chicago 21 downtown development area, and residents feel the fires are more than a coincidence.
We think that you could make a case for the places where there are burned out buildings, and you put an overlay map of real estate land trust, and you put an overlay map of the city plan over that, and it's an astonishing match, and nobody seems to want to do anything about that. That's strange, isn't it?
We've got good evidence that a number of these properties have been torched for insurance purposes. It's shown up time and time again where one owner will own a number of buildings in the neighborhood, and then it seems that his buildings are those which are burned.
All of the charges are difficult to prove, and with sit-ins and community meetings, these residents hope a massive investigation will be launched into the arson fires because they have trouble sleeping at night.
Actually, you sleep with one eye open and one eye closed. You're always in fear. You really don't know if it's going to be your house next or what, you know.
So, it's any minute danger, you know, but what can you do? So many fire.
Are you afraid?
Sure, I'm afraid. I'm shaking every night. There's somebody, when I got a dog in the backyard, and when the dog make a noise, I stay in the window and look.
John Potinsky has lived on Marion Court for 26 years. He tends a few tomatoes in the small space of earth in back of his home. But for the last few months, His life has been changed by the arson fires. 3 times fire broke out in this house just inches away from his. He put one out with his hose, but the 2 others destroyed the home. Now, he and his wife stand guard over their home.
You mean you have to stay here all the time to watch your building or friends?
Yes, every night, nighttime and daytime. I'll watch. I put water in kitchen, you know, put water because kids come and play.
Mrs. Potinsky watches in the evening, and John, propped against a pillow looking out a 2nd-floor window, stands guard from midnight to 5 a.m., watching for more fires that next time might destroy their home and their lives. John Potinsky doesn't want to move. He's lived here too long. And he doesn't understand why someone is trying to burn down the house next door. But his life is seriously affected nonetheless. And like the thousands of others who live here, the worst sound in the world has become the siren of a fire engine in the night.
The chief there on the scene tells us that it looks very much like arson once again. These live minicam pictures make a dramatic introduction tonight to a series of reports by our focus unit this week on arson, the fastest growing crime in the country. According to the Chicago Loss Bureau, that is an insurance organization that handles the claims for most of the insurance companies. Until 1974, we averaged about 347 cases of arson a year in the Chicago area, 347. In 1975, that number skyrocketed to 942. And this year's rate of arson will bring that number to over 1,000. That is an arson epidemic. It's harder to fight than a disease because there is no single germ to fight, no single carrier to get rid of. The causes of arson run from burning buildings for profit to collect insurance, to malicious gangs, to nuisance fires that begin in abandoned buildings. But they are destroying whole neighborhoods. During the week, we're going to look at the business of arson for profit, at the gang involvement, land speculation. But tonight, we begin with the problem of catching the arsonist.
It is Friday night, an engine company on the near northwest side, in the area recently publicized as heavily hit by the arson fires. They're rolling, as they do every night, toward a fire which has broken out in the basement of a 3-story home. It's one of an estimated 600 in the last year to send this community into fear each time a siren blares. In this case, it's hard to tell if arson was the cause. It will be up to the fire marshal heading up this unit to call for the arson squad. Residents watching scenes like this night after night are worried about the fires. And speaking through one group, the Northwest Community Organization, they are convinced the city isn't doing enough to solve the problem.
Sometimes they are reluctant to request that because it means they may have to stand around sometime after the fire is out waiting for someone from the bomb and arson squad to come and look at the fire right away. And there's only 37 people for the whole city, so too many cannot be on duty at one time.
The community seems anxious to help police catch the arsonist, but when it comes to giving testimony, many are afraid.
First of all, there isn't a kid in the community that doesn't know who's doing this. Those kids go to their mothers and their fathers. The biggest resource that they have is the community, and yet they don't go out to the communities. They don't knock on doors after a fire and say, did you see anything? Now, they may send a policeman in a squad car, but people aren't going to open up to that. You know, I don't want the cops coming to my door and then the finger being put on me. We had it that way, you know, and it's like you're going to get a shot in the back because I've been shot at and my neighbors have that were involved and everything. So I can't blame people for not getting involved.
But there is a bigger complaint about the arson unit itself, that it is disorganized and fails to turn up evidence that seems clear to the community. Channel 2 News found Juanita Hogue living next to a building that caught fire 11 times in the last 2 months.
I saw some people in there, and we called the cops out, and they says they can't keep coming out every time my mother calls.
There was one fire where you saw somebody in the building.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that one?
Well, I caught the people in there, and my mother called the cops, and they said they were coming, and they never came.
Juanita said she saw the boy with matches in the factory. It went up 5 minutes later. That was 2 weeks ago, and no one from the arson unit has talked to her yet.
That kind of eyewitness testimony is extremely hard to come by because of fear. Juanita knows that boy. She can identify him. She knows he is still in the neighborhood, and she fears that he will burn her house down because of this interview. Responding to the growing arson problem, the city reorganized its arson investigation unit last December, combining the fire and the police arson investigators into one 35-man unit. It is the kind of combined unit national experts say is most effective, a team approach with firemen and policemen. But our investigation shows it's not working as it should here. The men have not been trained as teams, and there is a political division between the policemen and the firemen. Bickering has followed. 3 of the firemen originally assigned to the unit have quit, some in disgust at what they feel are slipshod procedures. We found several cases of eyewitnesses who were afraid to talk to us or to the police, not trusting the arson unit to follow up on its job, or the local police to protect them from retaliation by gangs. Arson is extremely hard to prove. In the past 20 years, there have been only 2 criminal arson convictions in Chicago. But now, with more than 1,000 arsons in the Chicago area this year, well, the arson team is going to be under greater pressure than ever to break the record of only 2 criminal convictions in 20 years. Representatives of a Northwest Side community group met with Mayor Daley today to discuss some new steps to combat arson. Today we have our second focus report on this problem of arson, the deliberately set fires that are destroying whole areas of our city. This report concerns arson for profit, the way some landlords exploit buildings and then have them burn for the insurance, often paying gang kids to do the actual arson. The going rate for burning down a building is
100, 200, 500, 1,000. Depends how size the building is, how big it is.
Albert Guzman, a member of the Latin King street gang. He's talking about being offered money to burn down buildings on the near Northwest Side.
He offered us $100 to blow up the building. So I figured the building was small, you know, no net. So I came and looked at it. It was a big building. It was 4 floors, you know. I said, no, I ain't gonna do it for no $100. And you gotta be much higher than that. And then he goes, highest I go is 200. I said, no, you give me 500, I'll do it. But else, forget it. I ain't gonna do it for no $200. He goes, well, forget it. I'll find somebody else to do it cheaper, you know. Then.
Were people in the building at the time?
Yeah, there was 2 on top, the 3rd and 4th.
Is it happening today, that kind of offer?
Yeah, like it's been happening. Like I tell you, my friend, he got offered to burn down the garage and the car, and that happened 2 months ago.
Business is booming?
Mm-hmm.
All this contributes to the arson epidemic in Chicago. More than 1,000 arson fires estimated this year, and the insurance claims running around $16 million. Arson for profit is a big business in Chicago. And the young kids, like gang members, white, brown, and black, are probably responsible for far more of the fires than any professional or pyromaniac. And their very involvement, even though they don't care about the buildings they burn, intimidates the people. And they are afraid to call police. It works this way. A neighborhood changes. Slum landlords buy cheap buildings and milk them for the rents as long as they can, making no repairs. They deteriorate to a worthless condition, and then the landlord deliberately has his own building burned to collect the insurance.
But the gangs don't burn down the building for, you know, fun or nothing, you know. The gangs ain't got nothing to do with it, you know. If they eliminate the gang, it doesn't matter, you know, because the landlord just goes to somebody else and offers somebody else some money.
But the dream of huge, easy profits awaiting a landlord at the end of an arsonist's match is fading, because the insurance industry is fighting back and challenging the fires it believes are deliberately set.
I think if they knew that, and if they knew the length of time and the expense that they will be put to try to collect a dishonest claim, they would hesitate to set a fire. And we would hope that there's some deterrent to this being offered every day by our resistance.
The insurance industry is trying to crack down, lower the profits on arson, but the number of arsons continues to climb. People are driven from their apartments and people die. The insurance investigators have found that most arson fires involve the owners of the buildings, and yet only 2 slum landlords have ever been convicted of criminal activity. That was in April of 1974. The Circuit Court Judge Marvin Aspen, in passing sentence in that trial, said that arson for profit is, quote, a gross and calculated exploitation of the unfortunate, the impoverished ghetto dwellers, by a callous landlord interested solely in reaping quick and substantial profit. Tomorrow we're going to take a look at abandoned buildings, another contributing factor to the arson epidemic.
Good evening. This week we've been reporting on the arson epidemic on Chicago's near northwest side, on how some landlords deliberately set fire to their buildings in order to collect the insurance, how they hire gang members and young kids to do that burning for them. There is a third reason for the arson fires we're going to report on tonight. Abandoned buildings like this one that stand vacant for several months, maybe a year, inviting nuisance fires inside. And we report on a new Chicago plan initiated today to get at the problem of these abandoned buildings. First, the city designated the area on the near northwest side an arson area, recognizing the plague of deliberately set fires. From the Chicago River to California, from Chicago Avenue to Armitage, special measures will be employed to attack the problem. Second, squad cars will be sent to every fire in the arson-plagued area in an effort to gain immediate evidence of arson. Third, abandoned buildings are now being checked on every police patrol within the arson area. We went along on one of those first patrols today. On North Lister Street, as Officer Don Crawford left his car and checked the boarded-up buildings. Could people get inside? Are they still there? What is the likelihood it will be torched? This also gives the neighbors a chance to communicate daily with the police about groups of kids that might be loitering inside. Officer Crawford must fill out a report for every one of the 15 buildings on his patrol. It'll be tedious. One police district inside the arson area lists more than 200 abandoned buildings. But it is an important step in a war on arson. And a fourth point. Kids or vagrants hanging out inside the buildings will be arrested. The problem, of course, is making the arrest stick without an owner to file a formal complaint of trespass. But Alderman Richard Mell has an ordinance ready to deal with that.
This goes right back to the problem we have with absentee landlordism. It's against the law to be on an individual's property, but when you can't find them, when an individual who owns a piece of property in our ward lives maybe in Oregon, how can we get them to sign a complaint against that individual? So we hope to give the police the power to go in and arrest somebody that's trespassing on a piece of property.
Northwest Community Organization has been leading the charge, demanding attention to the burning of its neighborhoods. And they were out again today, working in the community, painting a little graffiti of their own alongside the markings of street gangs. On the abandoned buildings likely to be hit by fire, they spray painted their own signs. Arson prone, danger, on the sides of the buildings. All these efforts trying to alleviate the problems of people who lived next to the abandoned buildings. Like Mrs. Malloy.
My aunt, 82 years old, she doesn't sleep in bed. She sleeps in the chair on the porch every night, afraid that something will happen over here. There's gangs hanging around here, too. They're using pot, and there are 4 fires started already in 1 week. They're here right from morning till night. And we can't sleep because of, we're afraid of the fires. And we're watering this front and the back every night.
With your hose,
We've seen others of reports who live next to the abandoned buildings in fear, staying up nights watching for arsonists themselves. Measures like those taken today will help lessen those fears. It is the first concrete step by the city to try and curb the rash of arsons. And part of a new arson program, city officials are scheduled to announce at a meeting next week in the Northwest Side community.
Good evening. This week we've been reporting on the arson epidemic on Chicago's near northwest side, on how some landlords deliberately set fire to their buildings in order to collect the insurance, how they hire gang members and young kids to do that burning for them. There is a third reason for the arson fires we're going to report on tonight. Abandoned buildings like this one that stand vacant for several months, maybe a year, inviting nuisance fires inside. And we report on a new Chicago plan initiated today to get at the problem of these abandoned buildings. First, the city designated the area on the near northwest side an arson area, recognizing the plague of deliberately set fires. From the Chicago River to California, from Chicago Avenue to Armitage, special measures will be employed to attack the problem. Second, squad cars will be sent to every fire in the arson-plagued area in an effort to gain immediate evidence of arson. Third, abandoned buildings are now being checked on every police patrol within the arson area. We went along on one of those first patrols today. On North Lister Street, as Officer Don Crawford left his car and checked the boarded-up buildings. Could people get inside? Are they still there? What is the likelihood it will be torched? This also gives the neighbors a chance to communicate daily with the police about groups of kids that might be loitering inside. Officer Crawford must fill out a report for every one of the 15 buildings on his patrol. It'll be tedious. One police district inside the arson area lists more than 200 abandoned buildings. But it is an important step in a war on arson. And a fourth point, kids or vagrants hanging out inside the buildings will be arrested. The problem, of course, is making the arrest stick without an owner to file a formal complaint of trespass. But Alderman Richard Mell has an ordinance ready to deal with that.
This goes right back to the problem we have with absentee landlordism. It's against the law to be on an individual's property, but when you can't find them, when an individual who owns a piece of property in our ward lives maybe in Oregon, how can we get them to sign a complaint against that individual? So we hope to give the police the power to go in and arrest somebody that's trespassing on a piece of property.
Northwest Community Organization has been leading the charge, demanding attention to the burning of its neighborhoods. And they were out again today, working in the community, painting a little graffiti of their own alongside the markings of street gangs. On the abandoned buildings likely to be hit by fire, they spray painted their own signs. Arson prone, danger, on the sides of the buildings. All these efforts trying to alleviate the problems of people who live next to the abandoned buildings. Like Mrs. Malloy.
My aunt, 82 years old, she doesn't sleep in bed. She sleeps in the chair on the porch every night, afraid that something will happen over here. There's gangs hanging around here, too. They're using pot, and there are 4 fires started already in 1 week. They're here right from morning till night. And we can't sleep because of we're afraid of the fires. And we're watering this front and the back every night.
With your hose,
We've seen others of reports who live next to the abandoned buildings in fear, staying up nights watching for arsonists themselves. Measures like those taken today will help lessen those fears. It is the first concrete step by the city to try and curb the rash of arsons. And part of a new arson program, city officials are scheduled to announce at a meeting next week in the Northwest Side community. The city's new crackdown on arson is bringing in some immediate results. We better take that story next. 4 teenagers were arrested early today and charged with setting a series of fires in the arson-plagued near Northwest Side. Witnesses saw one of the youths running from a fire last night at 1452 North Keeler Avenue. Police rescued 2 children from the burning building. It has been just 5 days since our focus unit reported the beginning of the city's crackdown on the arson epidemic in this near Northwest Side area, and city officials are very encouraged by the results. 9 arson arrests in this community in these 5 days. That compares with just 21 citywide in the first 6 months of the year. And good cooperation from residents has been coming, too. A willingness to give testimony where there was often reluctance in the past. Tonight, Deputy Mayor Kenneth Sain will hear from some 78 community organizations invited to add their suggestions for combating the arson problem to what the city has done already. Creation of a special arson task force for the area. Police checking abandoned buildings every day. Police sent to each fire in the arson zone to find evidence of arson. And priority given to demolishing abandoned buildings that are next door to occupied ones. Tonight, Sain will announce a new step, the addition of 2 insurance experts to the task force to investigate patterns of arson for profit.
What we intend to do is to go block by block, fire by fire, location, identify the owners, identify if any insurance claim has been put forward, and share the information that the insurance companies might have relative to any arson committed therein.
Tonight we begin our broadcast from a large community meeting on the near northwest side, right in the middle of Chicago's arson combat zone. For months, these residents have been pleading with the city to help do something about the arson fires that have plagued their neighborhood, sent fear through the community. 2 weeks ago, the city did appoint a task force to fight the arson problem. And tonight, that committee is responding to the community, asking for more suggestions on what can be done to fight the problems, but also reporting on what it has done in the past 2 weeks. And it's impressive. 9 arson arrests have been made in this area in 5 days. Only 20 have been made in the whole city in the past 6 months. It comes from a beefed-up bomb and arson unit. Now, every abandoned building in the arson zone is checked by a policeman each day. And the task force has placed top priority on tearing down abandoned buildings next door to occupied ones. Police now check every fire for possible arson evidence. And to get to the problem of arson for profit, the task force will begin checking every fire against the landlord to find out if insurance was involved. A mammoth undertaking, but the kind of city response these community groups wanted. And the people are beginning to help the authorities solve the problems. The fear of going to the police or testifying against possible gang members has been cracked.
We tried to point out the problems in this story, arson by gangs, arson for profit. That was all last week. To be fair, Walter, I want to say tonight that what we saw tonight was impressive. 500 members of the community, still with suggestions and demands, but a solid response by the city to solve a very serious problem. It is a very good beginning.
A convicted loan shark who told a Senate hearing yesterday about mob murders testified today about arson. Gary Bodak appeared at the hearing under a grant of immunity from prosecution for any crimes he admitted. Phil Jones reports.
Bodak is back to the camera again today, connected the nation's organized crime with the growing arson business.
Arson for profit is about the easiest thing there is to get away with next to homicide.
And Bodak had his own personal torch jobs to describe, one in 1971 at a flower shop in Tampa, Florida.
Late in the evening, we went to the building, entered it, and proceeded to spread around the various parts of the building a flammable fluid which was left there in 5-gallon drums for the purpose of the arson. We opened the windows, ignited the building, and left.
In the audience today was Henry Gonzalez, attorney for Santo Traficante, who allegedly ordered the Tampa arson job. Gonzalez would not comment on information that Traficante has been subpoenaed to appear before this committee later this month. Bodak indicated today that it would be easy to make $1 million a year burning buildings, but he also related some past personal problems, one in Hialeah, Florida, at a private club.
We burnt down the Italian-American Civil Rights Club in Hialeah, Florida, which was run by Hialeah Frank. It didn't burn too good. We went back 2 days later and we burnt it down again.
Bodak also told how he and his partner had gone under code names.
John Mannerite was George Washington. I was Abraham Lincoln.
How did you go about selecting those names?
Patriotism, sir.
Each day Bodak testifies, authorities get more concerned about his future personal safety. Bodak, who is currently serving time for loan sharking, will be given new identification documents, and he may even undergo plastic surgery. And even with all that, authorities say that his life will be in jeopardy if he is ever returned to a prison. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
A Senate subcommittee opened hearings today on a crime that is growing to epidemic proportions: arson. Arson for fun, but especially arson for profit. It's estimated that the number of deliberately started fires has quadrupled in the past decade, and that they take 1,000 lives each year. Here's a report from Steve Young in New York.
2525 Alpha.
A fire marshal's log, Brooklyn, December 10th.
2525 Alpha. We get Frankie out of the neighborhood, all right? You follow us behind the other car. Let's pull away. Keep down, Frankie, all right?
Yeah. These 3 guys told the people who lived downstairs from me that they were going to burn the building next door down tonight.
Tonight?
Before they tried to burn it down, around 4 in the morning,
They tried already?
Yeah, they tried it already.
All right, what we'll do is we'll stake it out. All right?
Okay.
Northwest Command to Squad 26, okay?
We're on location at Woodbine and Central.
When I seen the guy, I right away came right down, but I don't know which way the guy went, or I don't know if he's still in there, or...
This one's done all the way through.
I think that the guy's probably still in there because he came pretty fast.
He's going to check out the basement to the end building, and then he's going to go into the next building over to the first floor wall.
10-4.
The search turned up nothing, but within 24 hours there were 2 roof fires at the same location. The cause, arson. This is the FBI's annual report on crime. What's listed as a major crime in the report is taken seriously by the nation's law enforcement establishment. Bank robberies, for instance. Last year, total bank robberies amounted to less than $15 million. But arson is not in the major crime category. It's listed along with vagrancy and loitering. Today, Senator John Glenn, who said arson may have cost the nation $15 billion last year, opened 2 days of hearings.
Why is it that the uniform crime reports compiled by the FBI do not classify arson as a major or Part 1 crime? We have the spectacle of entire neighborhoods turning into block-by-block rubble while we stand here in Congress calling for neighborhood revitalization policies.
New York is the undisputed arson capital of the world. Last year, there were 14,000 arson fires, 1 every hour. In Chicago, 1,263 suspected arson fires last year, an increase of 300% in less than 3 years. Omaha, 447 suspicious fires in 1976, a 50% increase in 10 years. And San Francisco, over 500 arson fires last year, a staggering 789% increase in 15 years. Senator Glenn estimates that of every 100 incendiary or suspicious fires, only 9 people will be arrested. Only 2 will be convicted. Only 1 will ever go to prison. Which is why those fighting arson say the figures are not included in the FBI crime report. No law enforcement agency wants statistics like that. Steve Young, CBS News, New York.
I think that the guy's probably still in there because we came pretty fast.
All right, Mike is in the end building. He's going to check out the basement to the end building, and then he's going to go into the next building over to the first floor wall.
10-4. Stay, Frankie, stay. Right now? Nah, ain't nothing.
Yo lo vi, te lo juro, man, yo lo vi.
You're running now.
Yeah, my hand is dead. Stop me from...
I don't think they will be able to get through.
He goes down the way.
Oh, yeah.
The end fire escape. Get down in and out. Okay. You haven't heard or seen anybody since then, right?
No. That's when I heard the guy, you know, I was going upstairs to check on my brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah.
And so I heard somebody on the roof. So and then I looked out the window from the back, from the fire escape, and I seen the guy. So and then I right away tried to go up the roof from where I live at over here.
Yeah.
And I hit my head trying to get up there, you know. And then when I seen the guy, I right away came right down and I, called these people. They were parked over there, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know which way the guy went, or I don't know if he's still in there, or... Okay.
This one here. This one's done all the way through. All to the basement. Yeah. Bricks in the rear yard.
No, I got this.
You got this one. The only one we didn't hit is this one. Maybe this one all through. Okay. What do you want, Charlie? You go all the way down, maybe pry one open.
The bottom is
What's up?
Steel cap. What do you call it?
What's up, hey, Charlie?
They make the tires off, so I close it.
Take the Charlie back.
What?
Water down there, so I don't know how heavy it is.
All right, let's see. Take a look.
He don't look fun.
25 to 26. Who's that, Rick?
Luca.
Okay. 3425. You understand the back here, Charlie, or what? They got into the center of the one building that we can't get into, but we don't have the upper floors. I'm coming around, Rick.
To dry cleaners. How can we get in there? The back is all tinned up. So Phil's checking to see if he can get through the wall. Charlie says there's a gooseneck in the back.
Nobody's in there with him?
No, Phil's in with his partner in this building. We'll go back and forth.